In my previous video, I talked about Jess Krohn's user manual and talked about a good layout is one that achieves or uses these principles of emphasis, arrangement, clarity, etc. In this video, I want to talk about Kristen's first draft and discuss the grading standards for the user manual and how they're achieved or perhaps could be improved in Kristen's piece, with the idea that you could take these principles or this conversation and apply the discussion to your own user manual. If we talk about user-focused organization, format, and design, and this idea of a minimalist style. Well, let's look at the first and the last bullets and focus on those first. What happens when we look at Kristen's piece is that we see cause for taking exception to some of these rules. So let's look. We're talking about a cricket care manual, and we can see now this is very targeted. This is a very specific case, a very specific audience, and that has implications for tone and style and content in the user manual. Kristen starts out with a good overview or table of contents of what the reader is going to get by reading this piece. And then we have a welcome page. And interesting to see, we are excited to have you explore. Now, typically I would advise against using you because it can get tedious, it can be vague, and it can be ineffective. But in a case when you have something this particular, this targeted, with a purpose of somebody walking through this manual in order to get some work done, using you makes sense. You're going to find that there are very few hard and fast rules that must always be obeyed. I would stand by the admonition not to use you unless you have a very good purpose, and I can see that Kristen has a very good reason to do so in this case. It's welcoming, it's direct, it's targeted, and therefore I think it's justified. We routinely hold lab meetings, and in addition to your cricket care responsibilities, you are required. So it's very sort of it's a team orientation. There's a tone here of team building, of belonging in the piece that makes this tone appropriate. All right, here we're talking about first things first. We're talking about cricket care, so it makes sense that we would be introduced to the parts of a cricket and some factual information that would inform the reader about the nature of the work they're doing and why they're doing it and what crickets are made of. This is a good example of useful, purposeful detail, or scannable structure, I guess. Scannable structure, which is to say that we have big titles at the top, and all the information in the bulleted list is related to the scannable title, or the header of the slide. So scannable structure means dividing up your information in ways that make sense, that is well ordered, and it makes the content easy to access. And I think this is a very good example of easy, scannable, accessible information. Daily procedures, all right? And all the information on this page is related to the egg pads, and we have a really nice visual that goes with the text. as I scan through here, I do wonder whether the supplies falls in the right place. Here we're talking about working with a cricket colony. We have a daily chores list, and the order of information is not perfectly clear to me. Pardon me. We have chores. We have information about working with a cricket colony. And then we have supplies. I guess I would ask Kristen, what's your rationale for this order? If it's arbitrary, I would ask you to reconsider. But if it coincides with the processes that you follow in the lab, then, and because this is designed specifically for your lab, then that would make some sense. We do have we have different size fonts here. We have large here, but that's a list, and then we have detail here, and more dense. If that's consistent, it's going to be okay, which is to say, that bulleted lists of items are always in 29-point font, and then heavy information is always in 14-point font, as it is here. That's good consistent design. And then we have an example of the colored background. So my guess is that your design principle here is that when content relates specifically to imagery, it's going to be in a colored box with white text. Good job of labeling 1, 2, 3, 4 and the corresponding content on the left. All right. And now we have a 1-column setup with 16-point font, and then we have a caption in 16-point font. I mean, no doubt, the correlation between imagery and text is very good. It's very strong. But I'm just not sure about the design principles and how they're working. Here we have, no spaces between paragraphs? Or it's a very subtle, I'm not sure that there's a space there. So what I'm looking for here is consistency in the design elements, paragraph breaks, font size, and all that. That is consistent throughout your piece. Okay, all right, so now what we have, all right, so what's starting to show here is every now and then you have a slide that has 4 images, and then you use the text on the left and the colored background with white text. And so that is a consistent element, a consistent design element that's purpose-driven when you are providing us with imagery and then sort of captions on the left. And you're consistently using the grid of 4 images with text on the left in a colored box. And now we have sort of a how-to with a related image. And I guess there's a process here. Do you see what I mean? If colored box means caption for image, that's great. But does colored box also mean process? I'm not clear on that at this point. Now we have an image, and then we have a bulleted list on the left with a different kind of bullet. Before, the bullets were little squares, now they're bullets. So that would be an example of inconsistent design. Still very strong with the use of headings and content, and we're breaking up the content. Less strong on consistency of the design elements. And then content information. So overall, I'm looking at user-focused organization, yes, for the most part, but with a need for some attention to details of formatting and design. Scannable structure for the most part, very strong, nicely organized. Useful, purposeful detail, absolutely, especially in those captions. Very good job of detailing what's in each of the images. User-focused process, I'm seeing a little bit of confusion in the process orientation, which is to say I can't tell whether those colored boxes are about captioning the imagery or somehow detailing a workflow or an order of events. Are they numbered steps? That could use some attention. Suited to the reader's working environment, I think absolutely. A design metaphor or idiom, not really, but it's not necessary either. It's just good, solid content. Information is accessible and easy to learn, I think so. Very much so. Copy and illustrations are in a familiar language, easy to understand, very accessible information. I saw a few typos, you can look at that. In terms of clear grammatical language, error-free. It's very strong, a few details there that need to be attention to. So in terms of minimalist style, it tends to be on the higher end of expository. Well, let's see, on a scale of 1, 2, or 3, 1 being let me start over. It's not as minimalist as I've seen in some other examples because it's a little more chatty, a little more narrative or expository. But it is suited in this case, justified in this case, because of the direct connection that you're making with people in the lab. It's a small group. You're building teams. You're making it a welcoming environment, and so it works. In some cases, that much exposition or explanation wouldn't work, but in this case, it does. So I hope this discussion helps with giving you some ideas for improving on your drafts or keeping the good stuff that's in your drafts. And if it doesn't, please post an email, send me an email with the word help in the subject line, and I will respond.